new hair, and new tattoo. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's jump into the video. Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kira Graves, and I am autistic. And I was diagnosed earlier this year in 2025. I've made a few videos on my autism journey that I will link below in a playlist. But today I want to talk about to get an autism diagnosis or to not. So I'm gonna just give you my perspective as someone who has gotten a diagnosis, but I was self-realized, self-diagnosed, etc. for 2 years before. And I was just as valid then. If you wanna follow me on any other social media platform, my ats are on the screen right now, as well as I have a podcast called A Couple Queers with my wife, and all the links will be in the description. So, to get a diagnosis or to not. A lot of people have been reaching out to me and asking my opinion on like, should I get a diagnosis? Is it worth it? Or is it better to just stay self-realized? So, whether you want to get a diagnosis or not, I respect both decisions. I think this is completely up to you, and I am just giving my opinion based on my experience, but I respect whatever you want to do with your autism journey, okay? And I also don't think anyone should tell you what to do. This is a very you-based decision. Both are just as valid, okay? I wanna say that. Both are just as valid, whether you're diagnosed or not. Your identification of autism can be just as good as a professional because you are the one inside your brain, especially if autism research has become one of your special interests, which is quite common. It happened to me, whereas like I started really hyperfixating on the topic of autism because I was so drawn to it, and then it turns out I am autistic, and that was a special interest of mine, and it still is. That's why I'm talking about it. I literally try to bring it up in a lot of conversations with many different people just because, I don't know, it's my favorite thing to talk about. So, if you've done a ton of research on autism, you probably know a lot about it. However, a professional might know a lot about other types of diagnoses. They might be able to tell you what you're not. They also might be able to see where there's some overlap. So I think it's a good idea if you're still unsure about it, especially if you're kind of going between, do I have ADHD? Do I have autism? Is it both? I recommend getting a diagnosis for that reason, because they can probably see what you're not seeing. And they know a lot about other disorders, mental health issues, and neurodiversities. So, if you do get diagnosed, here are some things that you can expect. Firstly, the main thing that I got out of a diagnosis was the validation. It was literally everything, because up until the minute that they told me that I'm autistic, I doubted myself a lot in the process. I kept going back and forth in my head between like, do I have it? Do I not? Cause like, I also am very high masking, and I've masked a lot of my autism traits and behaviors from a very young age. So sometimes it's just hard even for me to recognize my autism traits because I have them buried and hidden so deep. So just getting the validation, having someone say, yes, you're autistic, was just chef's kiss, literally everything. So if you're looking for validation, a diagnosis will definitely give you that. The next thing is help and support, access to resources. I haven't actually done any therapy or like support groups since I got diagnosed. I think I'm kind of just like pondering on what I want to do, figuring out, you know, my own brain kind of thing. They recommended to me dialectical behavioral therapy and also support groups. I think support groups can be really awesome because you get to meet other people like you. So that's what a diagnosis can help with. They'll connect you with resources. The next thing you can expect from a diagnosis is, depending on where you live, government benefits, tax breaks. So in Ontario, I haven't done this yet, but you can get a tax deduction so you don't have to pay as much taxes if you're autistic. I think there's also something for ADHD. Don't quote me on that. But wherever you live, you can look up like if there are actual like government benefits that you can get being an autistic person. And if that's something that you need, go and get it. Free government money, who doesn't want that? Especially having to live with something like autism your whole life. You deserve those benefits, okay? Depending on the criteria, I don't know the criteria, but you may be able to get like checks from the government, and you also may be able to get tax breaks. I think with me and my like tax bracket, I think I can only get tax breaks, but even that is great. Like, who doesn't want to pay less taxes? So I actually got to look into that. That is a note to future Kira. And the next thing you can expect from a diagnosis is just a deeper understanding of yourself. Your whole entire life, your whole childhood, like you can finally look back on those things and things will just make sense to you. It'll make more sense to you. And like, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to like further understand themselves and like have more compassion for themselves? Another thing, a not so great thing, I guess, from a diagnosis is there may be a very long waiting period until you can get it. In my opinion, it's obviously worth it. Like, the wait is always worth it. If you are, especially if you're going to get a free diagnosis where you live, there might be a hefty waiting period, but I would look into that because here in Ontario, it was, when I got onto the wait list, it was 2.5 years. I ended up going private and just like paying money to get it quicker. But if you can't do that, yeah, you'll probably have to wait the 2 years or however long it is. So that is just something to think about. It's not something to like stray you away from getting a diagnosis, but just something to think about, okay? Another thing you could expect if you want to go private and hire a private psychologist to diagnose you with autism, you're gonna have to pay up. You're gonna have to pay those big bucks. I only had to pay $2,000 Canadian, which is on the lower end of some of the other fees I've heard about from other places. Like, I've heard of up to like 20K, which is crazy to me, but hopefully people aren't like taking advantage of that and like charging more than they need to for that. But yeah, I did a virtual assessment. By the way, I talked all about like that whole assessment journey in other videos that are linked below. And I also vlogged the whole experience. For me, it took around 2 months to get my diagnosis, which is, yeah, it was great. But you may have to pay money. Just a warning. Just a warning. Another thing you can expect from a diagnosis is a lot of emotions to come up. So I highly recommend that you have a support system if you do choose to seek a diagnosis. I mean, I want you to have a support system either way, like right now, but if you don't already, you need to get a support system, whether that's like your partner, your mom, your best friend, a sibling, whoever it is. Like, have people to talk to, and you know, it'd be great to even have a therapist at the same time that you're going through this diagnosis journey, because the baggage that gets brought up is potentially really heavy, and for me, it was also really dark. Yeah. So just be aware that emotions are gonna come up, okay? Not to scare you, but emotions are good. It is good to let out emotions. Also, guys, I burnt myself on a pan the other day when I was making dinner. And it was the same day that I got this butterfly tattoo. So, ooh, she's dry. Oh my goodness. Anyways, I need to moisturize her. Next, another thing you can expect from a diagnosis, and this was just in my case scenario because my psychologist was also able to diagnose other things, but you could also maybe get clarity on other mental health issues that you might have, because usually autism, it doesn't just come on its own, baby girl. Autism usually comes with other things. You've probably developed a lot of coping mechanisms such as maybe OCD, maybe health anxiety, to cope with being autistic in a world that doesn't love or support us. That's really sad. I I support you though. I support you. But yeah, you might be able to also get insight into your whole entire life and your mental health throughout your whole life. So that might be beneficial, which I was also able to get another diagnosis along with autism. That was helpful for me. Getting a diagnosis can also give you permission to unmask more, not be so hard on yourself, and also possibly like prevent future burnout. Speaking from experience, finally having the clarity that I'm autistic just gave me so much permission to actually relax more, rest more, not push myself and treat myself like a machine and treat myself like as an actual human being with feelings, which has been just so invaluable. Just having the knowing that I'm autistic has just been so invaluable for my own mental health and my well-being, because I just give myself so much more compassion and empathy. Another thing you could expect from a diagnosis is prepare to be vulnerable. Prepare to be vulnerable with your assessor, because that's the only way they're going to be able to actually get inside your brain and see who you truly are. It's hard because like masking isn't always like voluntary. Usually it's involuntary. So like masking just happens sometimes and we don't know we're masking. But in an autism assessment, it's good to unmask, right? So that they can actually see your autistic behaviors. So just be prepared that you'll have to be vulnerable with whoever's assessing you. In my case, it was great because my psychologist was just the safest feeling person that could have ever diagnosed me. So it just worked out for me. And I really hope that you also get an assessor that helps you feel safe, because we can't unmask unless we feel safe. So if I was an assessor, if I was an autism assessor, I would, make that my number one priority, is like making sure that other people feel safe in my company so that I can actually see who they truly are and be able to assess them correctly. And lastly, getting an autism diagnosis would be really helpful if you want a support animal. I don't know what the criteria is again to get a support animal, but I know that if you're diagnosed with autism, you have a chance to qualify to get a support animal, which is freaking awesome. I mean, I wish Willow's my unofficial support animal. Like, she can't leave the house with me, but like when we're here together, like she's so helpful when I'm having a meltdown. Like if she's here, I can get through it so much better. So even just like, I guess you don't even have to get a support animal, but like getting a pet, it's great for autistic people and neurodivergent people. Animals are so healing. Now, on to the portion of the video where I talk about if you choose to stay self-realized or self-diagnosed. I like saying self-realized. I don't know, but it's up to you. First of all, it's still just as valid, okay? Second of all, you should still be able to access like support groups and like the autistic community. If you're entering a space that doesn't like validate self-realized autistics, then I would find somewhere else. You're safe here, I validate you here. I know it's not like an in-person thing, but you're welcome here. And there's also so many like online communities that you could be part of that you don't necessarily have to get a diagnosis to like be part of and feel validated and heard and seen by other autistic people. So yeah, if you choose to stay self-realized, you can save time, money, and energy, and you don't have to go through the trouble of someone just telling you exactly what you already know. My wife Lauren is still self-realized autistic, and they are choosing to not get a diagnosis for their autism. They might in the future, but right now they don't have a diagnosis, but they still, regard themselves as autistic. And I also support that. If you are managing just fine in life, if you don't need any support, resources, anything from the government, then you don't really need to get diagnosed. Like, it's mainly just for those kinds of things that like you have to get a diagnosis so you're like officially recognized as an autistic person. But like if you don't need any of that stuff, like you don't need to get a diagnosis. So, but I will say, if you stay self-realized, you may still doubt yourself every once in a while. You may not. I personally did, and that was like really annoying. And the main reason why I did get a diagnosis is to just get that validation. So yeah, if you choose to say self-realized, you may not be able to get any work accommodations. So like if you want accommodations at your work, depending on where you work, I don't know where you work, but if it's like a corporate thing that they need like, you know, a document that says you're autistic to give you accommodations, you might need a diagnosis. But if you don't need work accommodations, it's fine. And that is all I have for you today. That is everything I've written down. Again, this is all just like my own personal experience, my own personal opinions. I am not an expert on autism. I do know a lot about it because I've researched it for like 3 years now almost. If you don't resonate with anything I said, that's fine too. I don't care. I hope this helped you. Let me know if it did. Comment below. Share with anyone you think might benefit from this video. Let me know what else you want to see on my channel. I've been mainly focusing on my podcast, a couple queers, but I'm still out here making YouTube videos sometimes, okay? Love you guys, and I'll see you next time. Mwah!